Are you one of the millions of Americans who still receive paper checks from the IRS or Social Security? Well, I have some shocking news that's going to completely change how you receive your government payments, and you have less than 4 months to prepare for it. The federal government just made a massive announcement that will affect every single person watching this video, and if you don't take action by September 30th, 2025, you could be left without access to your money. What if I told you that President Trump just signed an executive order that will eliminate all paper checks from the federal government forever? What if your Social Security payments, your tax refunds, and every other government benefit you receive will soon only be available through digital payments? This isn't some distant future plan, this is happening in just a few months, and millions of Americans have no idea what's coming. If you want to stay ahead of these massive changes that are reshaping our financial system, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell because I'll be covering every update as this story develops. This channel is your go-to source for breaking financial news that directly impacts your wallet. The White House has officially announced that the United States is accelerating toward what they're calling a Check Zero world, and the implications are staggering. According to the executive order signed by President Donald Trump, all federal departments and agencies must completely end their use of paper checks and switch to electronic payments by September 30th, 2025. That's right, we're talking about June, July, August, and September, which means you have less than 4 months to completely change how you receive money from the government. This isn't just affecting a small group of people, this is impacting every American who receives any form of federal payment. Have you ever wondered why the government would make such a drastic change so quickly? The administration claims this executive order will modernize how the government handles money by switching from what they call old-fashioned paper-based payments to fast, secure electronic payments. But is this really about modernization, or is there something bigger happening here? The White House released a fact sheet stating that paper-based payments like checks and money orders impose unnecessary costs, delays, and risks of fraud, lost payments in the mail, theft, and inefficiencies. They're painting a picture of paper checks being outdated and dangerous, but what does this mean for people who prefer the security and control of physical checks? The numbers they're sharing are quite alarming when you really think about them. According to the Department of Treasury, paper checks are 16 times more likely to be reported lost, stolen, returned as undeliverable, or altered compared to electronic funds transfers. 16 times more likely, that's a massive difference that makes you wonder how many people have been affected by these issues without even realizing it. But here's what's really concerning, this change isn't just about how the government sends you money. The federal government will also stop accepting paper checks as payments. That means if you typically pay your taxes with a check, send money orders for federal services, or handle any government transactions with paper payments, all of that is coming to an end. What does this mean for Social Security recipients specifically? If you're currently receiving Social Security payments through paper checks mailed to your home, you need to set up electronic payment options immediately. Forbes has confirmed that Social Security recipients are included in this massive change, and there are no exceptions being made for people who simply prefer paper checks. The government is requiring everyone to switch to direct deposits, debit card payments, credit card payments, digital wallets, or real-time electronic transfers. Can you imagine the chaos this might cause for elderly Americans who have been receiving paper Social Security checks for decades and aren't comfortable with digital banking? The executive order does mention limited exceptions for people who don't have access to banking services or electronic payment systems, but how limited are these exceptions really going to be? The language suggests that these exceptions will be very difficult to obtain and will likely require extensive documentation proving that you literally cannot access any form of electronic payment system. What happens to people in rural areas with limited internet access? What about elderly individuals who don't trust digital systems or don't understand how to use them? What about people who are unbanked by choice or circumstance? This shift represents something much bigger than just changing how checks are processed. We're essentially moving toward a completely digital cash society where physical payments are becoming obsolete. Think about what this means for your privacy and financial freedom. When every transaction is digital, every payment can be tracked, monitored, and potentially controlled by the government or financial institutions. Is this the kind of financial system you want to live in? Are you comfortable with having zero privacy in your financial transactions? The timing of this announcement is also interesting when you consider what's happening in the broader economy. Gold prices have been breaking records, recently hitting over $3,300 per ounce and gaining approximately 40% just in the past year. Some analysts are predicting gold could reach $6,000 per ounce if even a small percentage of foreign-held U.S. assets are moved into gold. Why are investors flocking to gold at the same time the government is forcing everyone into digital payments? Could it be that people are losing trust in traditional currency and payment systems? What's really fascinating is how this connects to broader concerns about financial control and monetary policy. When the government eliminates cash and checks, they gain unprecedented visibility into every financial transaction made by American citizens. Every purchase, every payment, every transfer becomes part of a digital record that can be accessed, analyzed, and potentially restricted. Have you considered what happens if there's a system failure, a cyber attack, or if your bank account gets frozen? With paper checks and cash, you always had backup options, but in a fully digital system, you're completely dependent on electronic infrastructure that could fail. The government claims this change will reduce fraud and improve efficiency, but what about the fraud that occurs in digital systems? Credit card fraud, identity theft, hacking, and digital payment scams are already costing Americans billions of dollars every year. Are we really safer in a fully digital system, or are we just trading one set of risks for another? What happens when hackers target the electronic payment systems that the government is forcing everyone to use? For millions of Americans, especially those in older generations, this represents a fundamental change in how they manage their finances. Many people have spent their entire lives writing checks, receiving paper statements, and maintaining physical records of their transactions. Now they're being forced to adapt to digital systems they may not understand or trust. What kind of support is the government providing to help people make this transition? What happens to people who simply cannot or will not adapt to these new requirements? The broader implications extend beyond just government payments. If the federal government is eliminating paper checks entirely, how long before state governments, local municipalities, and private companies follow suit? Are we looking at the beginning of the end for all paper-based financial transactions in America? What does this mean for small businesses that rely on check payments from customers? What about rent payments, utility bills, and other regular expenses that many people still handle with checks? This massive change is happening whether we like it or not, and September 30th, 2025 is approaching faster than most people realize. If you receive any form of government payment, you need to start preparing now. You'll need to set up direct deposit with your bank, get a debit card if you don't have one, or explore digital wallet options. But more importantly, you need to understand what you're giving up when you make this transition. You're trading the privacy and control of paper transactions for the convenience and surveillance of digital payments. The question isn't whether this change is coming, it's already been decided. The question is whether you're going to be prepared for it and whether you understand the full implications of what's happening to our financial system. This is just the beginning of a much larger transformation in how money works in America. And if you want to stay informed about these changes, make sure you're subscribed to this channel because I'll be tracking every development as the story unfolds.